right? Nearly 60?
The young man that spoke, I don't know if you remember him, Mario?
Yeah.
He's a friend of Kaylee's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh? Huh? I had butternut squash soup, and it wasn't enough. I had coffee, and then soup, and I'm like, I'm so hungry.
All right, Hillary, get in there and fill up on that pizza.
Did a kale shake. Kale shake is the bigger,
I'm not.
better.
Can I sit next to Lisa?
I'm going to sit next to Lisa.
We had a meeting.
Then I can hear her. My ears are stopped up. We did it last time.
So everyone knows the mics are on right now. We can mute them, but they turned them all on. So if you want it muted, go back to red.
So we had a meeting.
My
Okay.
That's correct.
On Saturday evening.
I think.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the Board of Library Trustees City Council Joint Dinner Study Session. I want to talk a little bit about the Library Palooza because it was a wonderful event in Santa Clara at the Central Park Library, the main library, on Saturday evening, and I saw a lot of you there. And I think this is the third or fourth one I've attended.
Oh, okay.
I know you've had 5. No, maybe I've been to all of them. Yes, I was Kathy the first recipient of the award? Yeah, so I've attended all 5, and it was a wonderful event. So I just want to say thank you so much for sponsoring that for the community. Excuse me. And every year I see more and more and more participation from the community, and this year, I think, really topped all expectations. It was really, really fun. So I don't know, Steve, you're the chair of the Library Board of Trustees, if you want to talk about that a little bit and then introduce your commission for us.
Okay, thank you, Madam Mayor. So we have everybody here on the board. We have David Kyo, who's actually the assistant chair, the vice chair. And we have the secretary, Jan Hintermeister. We have Ashish Mangla, who's been the chair many times. And we have, who's sitting out of place, Lee Broman, who is a longtime also member of the Friends of the Library itself. So she constantly reminded us that we had to attend the Library Palooza or else. But I wasn't available, unfortunately, due to a family wedding, but I really wanted to go. They've been very enjoyable and all that. And I still have my Tiffany pocket square from last year, if you remember breakfast at Tiffany's, so it was really great. So we had our meeting, not coincidental, or maybe coincidentally, last night we had our regular board meeting since it's the first Monday of the month. And we came up with several ideas of what we wanted to talk to you about. So, and I'll let my colleagues do that. So mostly it's in terms of how do we manage growth and how do we continue to deliver library services as the city grows, as Related goes online, as some of the other areas in the city, the residential areas continue to grow their population. How do we deliver services? And more importantly, how do we measure that? So, and if Lee, would you like to go next?
My name is Lee Brofman, and I am on the Board of Trustees as well as on the board for the Library Foundation and Friends. First of all, I want to thank the City Council for everything that happened last year. As you know, I did a little happy dance. I was beside myself when the City Council stepped up to the plate and gave us our new Mission Branch Library. But that was such an agony that we have talked about how can we still serve the city and the libraries, but not go through these emotionally draining financial things. And so, of course, we are looking for funding sources, and one of the best funding sources would be that we are included as the same as with Parks and Rec, as a receiver of fees charged by the city for development. And also, I know I've talked to other city council members who mentioned art also as something that's so neglected in our city. But as part of the city library, I have to say, I, of course, would be in support of adding fees to the developments so that we don't go through this. Some of you weren't with us last year when we went through are we going to get it? Well, are we going to get it? Not, we're going to get it. So that should not be the way we run our libraries. And I'm sure other people have other things to say. Thank you.
Hi, my name is David Keo. I'm the vice, chair currently. Madam Mayor, City Council members, thank you for having us for dinner.
Switch your screen.
Oh, it's on now. I think it is.
Wow, you're a soft talker. Okay.
Sorry, I'll do better. So as Lee mentioned, we were looking through the general plan, and we noticed that, you know, we expect to have 33,000 new residents come online, and something I would like to see included in the general plan is some idea of how do we scale the current services that the library provides. There isn't kind of a baseline understanding of like whether it's per capita or I don't know what methodology we would like to use, but just something to aim for as far as with these 33,000 new residents, what does that mean for infrastructure from the library's point of view? Like how many new books do we need to add? Do we need new media services? You know, the library does a lot of programs. I'm constantly impressed by how well they're able to pivot based on the current community's needs. Recently, I learned that they gave a presentation on like cryptocurrency, and I was just impressed by how fast they were able to put this together and provide this to the community, knowing that, you know, it's something that's of interest recently. So being able to maintain that level of service and then being able to like scale it to the future for planning, just be great to see some sort of idea of how, you know, the city plans to do this going forward. I think currently it's just a very generic, you know, we know 33,000 people are probably going to be entering the city. We know it's going to be a strain, and we're going to try to maintain that level of service. So it'd just be great to see some kind of quantitative way to address that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been on the this board now for about a year and a half, and it's really been exciting to kind of meet all the people from the Friends and the Library Foundation and the city staff, and also to see all the interest that the city council has in libraries. It's been really, really heartwarming. But I had really the pleasure of attending the at least part of the Goals Conference that was run a couple weeks ago. And, you know, the message that we heard there very clearly was an interest on the city manager, at least, to have decisions be data-driven. And as we are looking at our own charter in terms of what we want to accomplish as a Board of Library Trustees over the next year, you're kind of hearing a common theme resonate that we'd love to put our budgeting process and the kinds of things we ask for in terms of city resources on a more quantitative basis. I was reminded of, you know, Mayor Gilmore and Councilmember Colstedt. You may remember that subcommittee on mitigation fees for parks several years ago. There's a really, really interesting, and we're kind of looking at something like that. You know, the potential of looking at demographic information to kind of see how the city is going to grow. The city librarian has collected some data on service levels and physical plant levels from neighboring cities. And I think it'd really be good to look at that data, look at how and where growth is going to occur in the city, and then do something very similar to what the Parks Department did. You know, kind of look at what capacity we would need in the future to at least maintain or even increase the level of service that the library system can provide the community. So I think that's one of our major missions that we've set for ourselves, is to try to provide that quantitative support for budget concerns and you know, just all the other kind of resources that we may require to keep the library serving the community.
So I'm Ashish, and I'm one of the oldest members of this August board. I've been lucky enough to be part of 3 different boards, 3 different librarians who we have worked with and for the last 8 years. And let me start with the, you know, one of the things which we have started 8 years back. We started with, we had papers mailed to us every week, every month, and we started with the email system of all the meeting notes and everything during our tenure. We started that. We created new libraries, Northside and now Mission. and we have now mobile van also. We also increased the library card expiration from 1 year to 3 years now. Some of the things which we have done in last 3 boards are so important. When we saw San Jose Library, the Santa Clara County Library increasing the fees, we didn't do any fees, and we kept our patrons and brought new patrons during those times. So we are very proud of what we have done with the library, which is one of the most visible face of Santa Clara. Going forward, I feel my experience with the library trustee, and I think we have to work with you as elected representatives and the state representatives to create more avenues for funding, which should be permanent funding for our library. We should also work on placemaking part of it, where we can use the library as part of that local community sidewalk type of thing. And I think having a mobile van now, we can create that. I want more van type of facilities, assets to be given to the library so that this placemaking becomes a reality. Because I know placemaking includes all the buildings you have. You can create sidewalk, kiosks, and all so that people can meet. But library can be part of that too. So I think placemaking, I feel, concept should be taken over and taken more seriously within Santa Clara. We had a visit from a community development director earlier, and I think we want to continue doing that, making a serious bid to make library part of that placemaking concept. And I know, Lisa, you were so interested. You emailed us earlier too about that. So I think overall, I feel the most challenging aspect of library is the funding, and also how to make it more accessible to community. And having more development is good, having more apartments is good, but giving more libraries, avenues for kids and elders to come to the library, maybe through van or through brick and mortar based library is all good. I think we should do that. In next few years, I want next decade to have at least 3 more libraries in Santa Clara to take care of all the development and also to make sure we are the really Silicon Valley engineering power. So that is my whole thing I want to tell you. Thanks.
Hillary, did you want to say something?
Well,
You
thank
look
you,
like
Board of Trustees. Very well spoken. In our meetings, we've been talking about the general plan, and we have been comparing the library's inclusion in the general plan to the park and recreation's inclusion in the general plan. And when we talk about quantifying and being data-driven, you can see it's very complete and detailed about how many parks per square mile, per capita, how many acres per capita. And so we wanted to include something very similar in the general plan. How many square feet of space per capita, how many books per capita, how many seats that do you put in, how many linear feet of shelving space do you need for the population. So those are the kind of things we'd like to include just to make it clear that we have a direction and that we could, for growth, and that we have a plan, a strategic plan for when the East Tasman development comes in or related, that we can be up to the challenge to serve these new residents in the same manner that we do now.
I think I'll just start and then we can go to the council too. I think now we're pretty much at a crossroads in the city that we are growing, and whether we like it or not, it's happening. Progress is happening in Santa Clara, and I think it's really important as to how we plan for that progress. Right now, the city's in the middle of, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 specific plans. We have the largest development going in City Place, west of the Mississippi. We have all these things happening, and yet we're not all comfortable with the amount of public facilities that are going to be set aside during this development, and especially during the entitlement process. And I think it's up to us now to make sure we get the land and the infrastructure ready for that, because our libraries are more than just the books. There's so many other aspects to the library, and just, you know, attending the library, going to the functions, and seeing the amount of residents that are there and people that are really, really passionate about the library. It has so many more forms now, and they're almost like, well, they are like more community centers as well. They're gathering places, and I know you talked about placemaking. That's a favorite of mine, and I see so many opportunities at our libraries for placemaking to have those, you know, available now. What you're talking about in terms of, you know, looking at some sort of fee structure, and maybe we do look at that in terms of, you know, arts and libraries, or, you know, some kind of combination as we get park fees and other things, because it's just, as, you know, as it becomes more and more dense in terms of our developments, there's going to be a lot more interest in the public infrastructure there. And it's for the people that are going to be living in these new developments as well, because they're going to be living in a much denser environment, so they're going to rely a lot more on their parks, their libraries, their art, you know, other places to get away outside of their, you know, high density development. So it becomes more and more important, but we have to get in now. We have to get in with our strategic plan now for the libraries, as well as everything else, because otherwise we'll miss the boat. And so I think it's really important, and I see your commission also getting involved in these specific plans to make sure you're weighing in on them, because, you know, in many cases it's, you know, many pieces of property together, and when you have a specific plan, then you have the opportunity to go in, and we as a city can say, okay, here's a specific plan. You want to do this, you know, 1,000 units per acre? Okay, this is what we want for our community, and now's the time to do it, and we have so many going right now. So anyways, that's just my comments. Teresa.
So what I wanted to say a little bit was that, you know, we talked about, I agree with the concept of broadening, you know, looking at the fee structure, including the public art and all that in the placemaking, and I totally agree with the idea of the data-driven decisions. I think some of you have heard me talk about that. And you know, and we talked, we're talking about like that the libraries are becoming a form of community center, and there are some in our community that are struggling with kind of the evolving role of libraries in our community. And we do have, you know, also a need for recreation centers and things like that. So I think we also need to be a little more creative and look at what other cities have done in terms of how do we maybe combine different types of facilities instead of having this as a distinct community center or a recreation center or a library. You know, how do we bring some of those types of facilities together into one complex so that they're multifunctional? And you know, I think it makes a better use of the resources and the facility and whatever. We're going to have limited land, and you know, I know in some of the discussions about the specific plans, you know, there's been talk about even, you know, possibly combining the function of a preschool or an elementary school with a community center or whatever. So I think I would want us to be looking at our plans going forward as to how do we really best meet, you know, the needs of a community, because maybe we can do one facility really great, and as Trustee Mongla mentioned about wanting to see several more libraries, well, maybe the way we do that is that it is a smaller library, but it also is, like I said, it has that functionality of serving as a community center and some form of rec center, and maybe, you know, there's we have a lot of other service gaps for our community, that those kinds of services can be delivered there, or maybe that's a place where we partner with nonprofits. And even though some people don't like hearing this, maybe, you know, other activities with our West Valley Mission District or the Santa Clara Unified District or whatever. So you know, I do think, well, you know, I want us to make data-driven decisions, but I also want us to bring a lot of creativity to what we're looking at for the future.
I want to thank you, Hillary, because ever since you came here, you've turned libraries into community centers. And now you've given like all these little things that they can come and do. And now you're bursting at the seams. So we went with Irvine, who gives you a bus, you know, this bus thing. But I'm just curious, are you going to be data-driven to let us know that if this is an effective way of getting readership to these other developments and people, because we don't really know where this is all going to land. And with everything that's coming down the pike, I understand, I'm looking like almost at a cultural tax where it involves the arts and like kind of a way that we can just say to developers, you need to sustain what's going to happen with apartments and these people that are going to be all congested and how they're going to get out. Basically, you're an extension of their living room. So, and I see them all going there, and it's what they are. Placemaking, yes. I mean, that is huge. It's like you build it, they will come. So I look at our 19 square miles and go, how are we going to do this? And how are we going to get there? So I think I said to you a long time ago, if a development came in, do we take one of their, if it's mixed use, do we take one of their rental spaces and say this is going to be a library, this is going to be daycare, this is going to be a multi-use thing where they can come in and get books? Is it like a mini coffee shop? I mean, like, how do we do this? Because I think Teresa's right in that aspect. It has to have a multi-purpose because there's going to be so many people, and it might help defer some costs in some way down the road. So, and I know that everything that you have brought to us, I mean, that, what was that thing, the robots, what do you call that thing? Comic-Con.
STEM
And then the
Central?
other thing they
STEM?
had, no, and there was something else where, the STEM thing and I mean, that just, the STEM Bowl. I mean, all of those things were just like, all of a sudden, boom, they just went off the charts. And we got people come, there's no parking, well, walk there, I mean, bike there, I mean, you know, find a way to get there, but I mean, and I get that, and parking has become an issue.
She drove there.
I'm sorry, I have a new car, no. But that has turned out to be a real kind of community that you just created this. And Santa Clara wants more of that because that's all we hear about. Council hears all the time how that library has changed in formula. The north side, if you have like one of those little father-daughter dances or whatever, and the little teas and all this other stuff, they're sold out, or they're, you know, there's no place for them to go, and they're all cranky. Well, how come we can't have, you know, whatever? And we don't know how to address that. We're like, what do we do? We're limited in space. These are great creative ideas, but how do we get it out so that we take care of everyone? So, and I know you guys are.
I think that's a fantastic question, and thank you. And to Teresa's point, the communal, the combined use is a great model. There's a branch in San Jose and Almaden, which has combined their community center or their rec center with a library, and it works really well. And it's a beautiful facility, and I think it makes a lot of sense to have a mixed use. I know a lot of people talk about combining school libraries with public libraries, but I have not seen a successful example, except perhaps MLK Library with the university, but even that has had some issues. I think partnering with Parks and Rec to create a facility that would serve the whole community would be advantageous and something that could really work. The bookmobile is fantastic. Already it's been circulating a lot of books. It's created a lot of attention. It's something that's, you know, really popular. But I only have one driver. It can only go so far to reach people, and it is limited, though we augment it with holds. And I mean, there's a lot you could do with a bookmobile as far as programming. So it's very versatile. So it's going to do a lot, but it's not the answer for the long term. I think.
I was going to mention that Mitchell Park in Palo Alto is a prime example of a community center and a library that has done very well and serves that community very well.
I would just add that there was mention earlier that there's 4 specific plans underway, and when we look at the specific plans, if the council, we've already started to talk about revenue opportunities and community benefits, we would want to do some study and analysis in terms of where is the margin so that the city can create a community benefits program. And of course, we would go out with the community to engage in what are the priorities so that council can set priorities. If you look at Perry Park in Sunnyvale, which is off of Matilda, we did exactly this, where we looked at what were the community benefits that we could generate through the specific plan. And at the time that the specific plan was adopted, a community benefit was also adopted so that there was clear community priorities of fire station number 1, library and city facilities number 2, and that way we can generate dollars in order to reinvest back or do expansion or build them in as part of the development. So there's great opportunity with the 4 specific plans underway.
I like the idea of the community benefit plan with the specific plan, and maybe we can do that, well, I know we can do that, but also maybe a combination of, you know, I know we have the swim center coming up. We're going to be talking about that, I think, the end of this month or March. Very, very soon it's coming up. And maybe we look at, you know, take a bigger look at citywide, maybe some kind of a parks library plan or something for the entire city, maybe a bond or something that we float. But in terms of the specific plans, you need the real estate, you need the land, you need all those things. So maybe that's a way with a combination we can do something.
Yeah.
You know, that really is a good overall for the whole city. Oh, Patty.
So when you talk about including the library in the general plan, and I think that's something that needs to be done, and you talk about linear shelf feet, you know, linear feet for shelf space, how many books you need, but do you also take a look at the computer space that you need? Because so many things are digital now, and people want to download books, and they don't want to carry books home, and they want to, you know, they want to go to the library and do research online. So do you have some way to measure how many computer stations you're going to need, or how many hookups, because people bring their own laptops, and to make sure that you've got really high-speed internet connection within the library? So, you know, that's something I think that we really need, and that's something that's very easy to install, almost like little satellite libraries in almost any community room, as long as you've got the bandwidth and the digital capacity for people to even order books that can then be delivered. I mean, you don't need a lot of shelf space. When I went to my son's high school, and this was several years ago, I looked at the library and I said, you know, gee, where's all the shelves of books? You know, where's the book stacks? Because they don't do it anymore. The kids just go online. They do their research online. And then the other thing about partnering with our educational facilities, I get that, you know, working with the Unified School District probably isn't a really good match, but we certainly have a great resource in Santa Clara University. That library is open to the public. So is a law library. Mission College to some extent as well. But we don't advertise, or I don't think we coordinate enough with those really great resources, because I think probably 90% of our community doesn't know they can go use Santa Clara University Library, which is a huge resource.
Well, we have a program called Link Plus that connects us to most of the universities in California and all the other public libraries. So for free, you know,
Yeah, but
people can
online.
order, and
Right.
with our library card, you can use Santa Clara University at any time and check out items. So it's a great resource. I work closely with their librarian and on programming. We're working on a better partnership, but it is a good resource that does need more advertising, definitely.
Yeah, and doing the university thing online is fine, but actually being able to go into that library and use the facility itself is a tremendous resource for our community.
As for the computer space and the online, of course, you still need some computers, but there's it's really been changing, and we need people space. And you're right, we don't need as many shelves, but we need the tables and chairs and computers There's laptop checkout, which could save a lot of precious space because you don't have to have a set computer. You can check them at a laptop and they can take it somewhere. So there's ways that you can alleviate that, the space hogs. But I think so you just have to be creative, like Teresa was saying, in how you use your building and what the community wants to use it for and how they can use it. So it's really evolving, and there's so many opportunities to grow our libraries without having too much of an impact as far as budget and real estate.
Yeah, Mayor, may I? Thank you. Thank you very much. I think these are definitely exciting times to be a Board of Library trustee because it wasn't this exciting when I was a trustee. So you definitely have some great challenges ahead of you. So I'm glad you all are there, and you too, Lee. The mayor talked about the specific plans that are taking place right now, and thinking about, number one, where 3 of them are taking place right now on the north side. I wouldn't be surprised if we're going to be looking at potentially another library up there. When I think about the last time I found out how many people utilize the patrons that utilize the north side a month, I think it was about 25,000 people, and that's basically how many people you're talking about coming into the city, over the next couple of years. So I think a new library is definitely warranted. I'm thinking about that property that Related gave back to the city. Was it 35 acres, 40 acres to be used for
30,
whatever?
30.
30, yeah. So, and some money along with it. I think there's some possibilities out there. There's another project that's going up right now on Kiefer and Lawrence. I think it's Lawrence Station. And I remember when meeting with them, they talked about some extra space that they were putting on the development, like a community type room, and talked about potentially, could be used as a library, a branch library, or something to that effect. So that's another opportunity that could possibly come about, and because there are no library services on that part of town when I think about it. But I concur with what Councilmember O'Neill said about utilizing space and just putting a lot of different services, being able to put a lot of different services in one place definitely is a good use of space. I've seen it in Cupertino and several other places I've been lately. It just seems to be like something that people are gravitating towards, and it's definitely a good use of space and keeps everybody together. It's like one-stop shopping in some respects, but I think there's definitely some opportunities out there to do something like that, and funding. We just have to be creative, but the city's done it in the past, so I'm sure we'll figure out a way to do it again. And one thing I just want to mention, when I left the Library Palooza on Saturday night, I ran into a mom and a little girl who were just like awestruck by what was going on inside the library, and they were wondering how they could get in there. And I said, you can't. I said, it's a closed event. I said, it's a fundraising event. And so I asked her, had she used the library, and she said yes. She says, we just moved here from New York City, and they've been to a couple of our family readings and storytelling, and they were just fascinated with the library. They really loved it. So and I of course sang its praises as well, but at the same time it was just the excitement in their face, and just to find out they had just moved here and they already found this great library. They were really, really excited. So thanks for all your good work.
They may have seen the light from Jan's jacket out there, which was shining down Homestead Road for many miles.
Are there pictures of this? Yes, there are. Okay.
You have to wear your sunglasses.
Anyone else?
Is it that bad?
Wow. Okay. Pat? Anyone else? Yes.
Do we have any kind of standard demographic predictions that we use in the city? I believe, Parks had something that they used, but that's probably 5-7 years ago now.
Are you talking about current demographics or projected demographics?
Yeah, projections. Like with age, kind of age
I don't know, city
profiles
manager?
and numbers.
Generally, cities don't do that type of demography work. We look at school districts who really have to use the demography work to plan for students. So we could get the school district to see if they're willing to share their information with us. What I have seen and have participated in as many times as we hand over our development projects to them so they could use their trends and their demographers to project what the impact would be with student enrollment. But it gives a lot of data that in terms of just build out and what the projected demographics are.
I know we had some presentations from Don Whedon, and he had a lot of really interesting data, and I don't know if that's coming from a branch of the Census Bureau. There's like that what is it, that like USA Community Survey, there's like another kind of program. Of course, I don't know, who knows, that may not even exist anymore, or nobody works there. But they have a lot of, I think that it was interesting to look at some of the data that has been in those kinds of presentations, like what are they thinking is going to be the average age of residents and like a bubble that's going through. But I know that some of the school districts have been experiencing a bubble, that's a wave that's gone through, and a number of them, not so much Santa Clara, but a lot of our surrounding districts are seeing kind of almost a collapse in certain parts of their population because of the cost of living and certain, but that's an interesting thing to know too, which parts of the community may be leaving.
City Manager, we're doing a demographic study for our charter change that we're putting on the ballot. Would that information, that would be for existing residents here in the city. I don't know how helpful that would be, but.
Most of those demographics are based on the 2010 census, so there's no real projection involved in what we're going to be looking at the charter districting. Obviously, 2020, there'll be a whole new census. But in terms of predicting where the populations are going, the charter review and the demographics that will be available to the districting will not be prospective. They'll just be based on census.
A resource we may be able to use is some of our developers in town who've developed, hundreds, thousands of units that may have some information. They do their own studies that they may, share them with us. But I think a key for how we move forward with this now is that we have the opportunities with these specific plans. In fact, we have one on in 20 minutes. We have the Tasmania specific plan. If you have nothing to do, you're all welcome to stay and participate. But to make sure that we have our needs out there, that they're well established and well documented, so that when the developers come in to develop these projected areas, that they know exactly what the community is going to be, anticipating for these developments, and especially in terms of libraries that have become so popular for so many reasons. And I don't want to forget that we still do need books for the little ones, for the story times and other things, because I never see those going out of style. I mean, it's really something to see them hold their books and to have them read to them, and there's just something special about that. So I hope that never changes.
I don't think so. We checked out 2.7 million items last year, so I think we're still holding strong there. No.
That's a lot.
Right, and there's a program of 1,000 books by the time you're age 5, I think, so that's really great. That's a really great program we have.
Graduates.
And we have graduates, yes. Thank you.
Wow. So I think we all have our work cut out for us, and we need your help, and you need our help, and thank you for everything you do for the community. And we look forward to Mission Library being completed very quickly, and we can work on the placemaking outside the library. I have a vision of Mission Library and Central Library that we have, because I'm, of course, a coffee addict, but some kind of cafe outside of Mission and outside of Central to take advantage of the beautiful setting outside, because I think, coffee, tea, and libraries go well together. So I hope we get there someday.
Could I just
Yes.
mention one little thing about the Mission Branch?
Oh,
While
here it
just-
comes, here it comes.
No more money. While the park is being somewhat renovated and trenched and lighted, it might be a great time for Parks and Rec to look at. I'm not trying to tell them what to do, but it'd be a great time for them to look at that park and to put in like lights because you used to have to turn the lights off in the library on the gazebo. So it seems to me like they could be doing that, and also a kiddie park, a baby park. I think it's the only park in the city that doesn't have a child, one of those little, at least those little child's parks. Anyway.
Exactly.
I'm sorry I brought it up. I'm
No,
not picking
that's
on the
good.
Parks and Rec.
Very good suggestions.
Lisa's good
Yeah,
on tot lots.
I like tot lots.
So I just saw your jacket, so I think you need to stay for the closed session. And you wear
should have
that
worn
jacket and advocate for the Tasmanies. I think that would be cool. A hat? No, the jacket was good enough. What is that, like solar panel material or? Whoa.
Anything else, Steve? Because looks like they need to, you need to.
Well, no, I think are done. I just had to say, sorry to bring up a cliche, but I think we're also thinking outside the box. It's amazing. We have trivia nights at Mountain Mike's Pizza, so you can, sponsored by the library, so you can actually go off-site and do a library-sponsored event. So we've got new ways of doing other things. Other libraries do that too, as I pointed, we're not the only ones, but it's a neat thing that we're doing to look at, breaking the rules and, as they say in Silicon Valley, be disruptive. So things are getting disrupted. The way libraries work is being disruptive from the last couple of years, right? I mean, in 2000, everybody said libraries would be gone, everything would be digital, and look what happened. They reinvented themselves. So this is all great stuff, and we're excited for the future.
Well, thank you for being such an active commission, and thank you for all that you do and all your passion. And whenever you need something, you send Lee Brofman over to get doors, windows, molding, bricks, whatever you need for the library, glass for the windows, panes. Thank you.
No, she's not shy.
You've got some fierce advocates for the library and a wonderful city librarian, and you are thinking outside the box. You are being very creative, and you're making the library a lot of fun too.
Sorry,
and people appreciate it in our community.
Let me say one thing to echo that. The Board of Trustees really thanks Hillary and the staff. Paul and all the staff there are really doing a great job, and it's enjoyable when we meet every month. They have so much good news, right? We see the slideshow, we see the kids who've read the books, we see all the activities, all the cultural-based activities at all the various branches. So, I mean, every month they have great stories to tell about what's been going on at the libraries.
And I don't want to forget your foundation as well. Your Library Foundation and Friends has been so supportive and so helpful, and for all the extras that go into the library.
I think it was an amazing time when the library, the library trustee, Nancy Toledo, came to the city council and said, things are good in the city. How about if you help us form a foundation? And that's been, 14 years ago. And we've never looked back, and we just look forward.
Thanks, and congratulations to Bob Bird as your library hero. He's well-deserved honor. Okay, well, thank you all. Thanks for coming. Thanks for eating. There might be some more pizza back there if you need some more.